anybody that's going to ride their bike across the country, you got to be a little bit mental, and I don't care what the cause is for. But when he tells this story, he's so passionate about it. He wants to make a difference so bad. This is the kind of stuff in a terrible time that the country seems to be facing right now with COVID-19. This should not be lost, and it won't be lost. His story is one worth telling. And I mean that when I say there will be a ripple from something that he's done on this adventure that'll touch somebody's life somewhere down the road. And he may never know it, but that's the coolest thing about what he did. Him out here riding as a runaway kid himself, who found himself on the bike, create hope, inspire for these kids out there. That's the good stuff. That's the good that nobody will talk about right now. No major network, nobody. But I hope that one day when this story's told, he'll change somebody's life.
We fundamentally need to understand that for all the right reasons, when a kid's in this kind of trouble, what we call at risk, we mean they're at risk of hurting themselves, hurting other people, making bad choices, getting arrested. We rightfully want to protect them, and so we focus on prevention.
I think every time someone comes out, whether it's someone in Hollywood, someone's Noah that's riding, every time that they know that there are other people that have been through the same crisis and that they've came out on the other side, I think it's always promising.
Once again, the limitations in terms of what it is that they can do is really based on the horizons that they see.
Know that there's folks out there who care about more than the bottom line and who are trying to make a difference in our community for children who really need an extra helping hand.
When I started the Discover Your Path tour, it was something I had in mind for a long time. I wanted to ride my bike across the U.S., and I wanted to talk to kids and connect with kids that were like me in the way that I grew up. This was, really important to me, but I didn't really know how to do that. And then I started to think about my time in this runaway shelter and youth shelter in Central Florida.
Well, I think it was about a year ago. It was on a Friday, and I had been out running around in the community, and I came back to our office, and Stephanie, who answers the phones and stuff, she said, "You have a voicemail, and don't let it go. Go listen to it and make sure you call this person back. I think it's going to be really special."
It took a long time. It took me about 4 years to build up the courage to drive down to Florida, knock on the door of the youth shelter that I was actually in, and say, "Hi guys, I used to be a resident here and you guys helped me out a lot and this is my idea." So
just hearing your story and the fact that you were here in our shelter and just your positivity, what you've been through to where you are now, we just knew it would be a great story and a great inspiration to so many youth out there. And
from there, we set up some calls, just kind of watched the whole thing build and helped, connect him to different shelters and stuff across the country.
Connecting you with individuals like from the Florida Network of Family Services and people like that oversee the shelters.
And the intersection of runaway shelters and bicycles is kind of a sweet spot for me. And so I think I Facebook stalked you and very tactfully asserted myself into the conversation. And the rest is history.
Noah Ehlert has covered a lot of ground, and not just on his bike.
I was in foster care. There was a lot of struggles in the home, and those things escalated as the years went on.
Ehlert, who came from a rough upbringing and a single-parent home, used bike riding as an escape. Now, as an adult, he's riding to inspire.
There's the big message here is that the moment they feel stuck in that it's not their entire life. And I want to see if I can connect with some of them and let them know that a long time ago I was in a very similar place.
The founder of Discover Your Path Tour plans to cycle from San Diego, California to St. Petersburg, Florida, and will stop at 24 group homes along the way.
It's been really important. We've seen it with the times that he's come into our shelters and talked to our kids that, we can say all the time, you guys can overcome this, you can do this. It's a whole different thing. You listen to somebody who's been there. And so I think that has made it so much more important.
The 3,000-mile ride will begin in early 2020 and ultimately end at the St. Petersburg Youth Shelter where Ehlert began his journey several decades ago.
I just know what it was like, and I just want to talk to them on a very real level. They have the power to, make some good choices and positive change in their life.
That it's such an incredible message for them that life doesn't have to be like it is today. It can be different.
Getting ready to leave on this road trip was hard for a lot of reasons. Leaving the family behind. We always knew it was going to be really tough, but actually stepping out the door to leave on this cross-country trek definitely made things real. The scenery and being wrapped in nature just really put things into perspective that this was a big thing that we were getting ready to do. And it was 10 months of preparing and planning, and all of it was finally here. We were on the road. A road trip wouldn't be a road trip without a few snags. We got a little bit closer to our destination of San Diego, and we decided to take a little side route in the car to see what type of terrain we would be riding on our bikes a few days later. And the first thing we encountered was a washed out bridge and road closed signs. We thought, well, this is going to make this adventure very, very interesting. And one thing I remember really well, all the people that took us in, all the hosts, being able to reconnect with some old friends, getting to spend some time with some new friends. But the commonality between all these people that hosted us and took us in was that we found they were just really kind and generous people. They were people that were really good at being good humans, and seeing some of their interests and some of their ways that they give back, the things that make them happy and their life full of joy. It was incredibly eye-opening, and it was also a really special way to start the trip. And it really felt like that was an important point to the trip that we're doing and what we're trying to achieve here. And it makes me think of a lot of the kids out there and myself at this time in my life. It felt like everything around me was negativity. And a lot of these kids right now that are displaced with foster care, they're going through, family crisis, emergency crisis. All of this stuff is a lot of negativity that surrounds them. When you wake up in the morning and you have all this joy and happiness, you should make it your responsibility to figure out how you can get other people there too. We packed up from San Diego early in the morning to officially start the Discover Your Path tour. We are totally having way too much fun out here at the moment. Trey and I are getting ready to take off from Dog Beach in San Diego, California, to venture in that nearly 3,000-mile journey. It was incredibly exciting seeing us off. My niece and nephew came out, my half-sister from Santa Barbara, a really close friend from my hometown in Adams, Wisconsin, and her husband came out to ride the first 56 miles with us. It was a really special day. Me and day 3 are not friends. People asked, how are you gonna, get across the country at 3,000 miles? And I've been riding a bike since I was very young. I've been competing since the age of 14. I've ridden 75 miles a day before. However, I never did it 56 days in a row, and I never did it through rain or hailstorms or up mountains or being chased by dogs. And of course things are going to happen. Things are going to go wrong. Things are going to get hectic. There will be 40-mile-an-hour headwinds going through a sand dune in the desert.
Sandblasting.
Yeah.
That's the term for it. Sandblasting.
Soul-filling, but it hurt. It really hurt. But it's just something you got to do. I don't remember talking about trips and adventures where everything went perfect. Those just don't seem as memorable. So all of these things were underestimated on my part. But we continued with that mantra of you just carry on, you got to do it. It became really important and really special, the reason that we were biking.
A lot more hills than I expected today. Nice out though.
I guess I didn't think about it because there really was no quitting. You just can't stop. So if it's gonna rain, it's gonna rain. If it's gonna hail, it's gonna hail. And it did. But there was a little patch of light during that hailstorm just ahead. So I was chasing that bit of sun peeking through the clouds, knowing that it would eventually stop. This hail would stop pelting my skin, and I think that's just a perfect metaphor for when we talk to these kids. We're just letting them know that there is that patch of sun ahead. It's not going to be like this forever. You got to do it. You can't not do it. You can't not go through whatever it is that comes up. And getting blown off the road in sand dunes, I guess, was just part of the ride. So that is it. Moving on. Day 4 coming up. And this one kid was really kind of slunched over in his chair and really quiet, and he said, I don't have anything that I like to do. I don't have any interests. And I said, well, that can't be true. So I can't accept that as an answer. I said, we're gonna find something. And it was just a moment, and a girl across the table, and she went to her room and she got this piece of paper out of her bag, and she handed it to me, and it was a portrait of her that this young kid had done. He was about 14 years old. It was a great drawing, just pencil on paper, and he had given it to her as a gift. I could just see the way that his posture changed when she came out and acknowledged that this was something that he did for her. And you just saw that the joy that came from him being recognized. And he went from, I don't have any interest, there's nothing, literally his mental state was, I have nothing that makes me happy, I have nothing that I want to talk about right now. And just this moment opened him up. Somebody appreciated something he did for them, and it was like the littlest detail was a monumental change for this kid. And that's what you hope for when you talk to them, and that's what you hope that they realize about themselves. Because all these kids are literally one kind person away from discovering themselves, discovering what they want to do, discovering what makes them happy, and what can get them through a really, tough situation, a tough moment. Kids that grew up in situations like these tend to look for role models. They look for role models. They look for someone to look up to. They look for someone who cares enough just to spend time with. Growing up, we try to piece people together like this in hopes of becoming more complete.
Are we recording?
Sure.
So I'm going to watch my language. Every time I stopped, fucking wind stopped. I thought, oh man, I couldn't wait to start going again, 2 minutes later, it's coming from across that way. It started in 1995 when I shut down my business and came to Wisconsin to hang out with my two sons. One was in his second year in college, and the other one just graduated from high school and was going to go in the Army in September. So I came to Wisconsin. And the oldest boy, he was busy working and partying. And the young son that was going to go in the Army had a girlfriend that occupied a lot of his time. And fortunately, he and Noah were friends, and it was off to the races.
Dave came to visit my family in Connecticut, and my dates and routes were being mapped out on my desk, and it's kind of how the trip came up to play. I was really excited to tell him about it, and things just kind of went from there.
And I realized that this was a big deal. I was in dire need of getting back into shape. I raced for about 4 or 5 years in the 90s, and then set my bike aside, and that was the end of it. And I gained a lot of weight, and I was making feeble attempts at getting back into shape, but I would just kind of crumble after a while. And then when this came along, I just said I want to do that Arizona part of it. It's important. I see it as important for Noah to do because it's just the right thing to do. The youth today, it's just astounding at how many kids get mixed up with alcohol and drugs at such a young age, and it gets a hold of them, and nothing good comes out of it. It always gets worse. It never gets better without some kind of help.
I've had some great adventures with Dave in the past, and him coming out on this journey with us was just something that will never be overshadowed. Being able to ride on this road with him, hearing his encouraging words, and just remembering how important he's been to my upbringing and the ties that we have through cycling.
I wouldn't have gotten my ambition accelerated. I doubt that I would have, to the point that I'm fired up. I'm fired up for the cause, and I'm fired up for the health improvements it's making in me. The longer I'm around, the more I want to live longer. I'm having fun. I'm taking much better care of myself than I was 6 months ago. Okay, well, this is the end of the journey for me. I've done the route through Arizona with these animals, and I can't take any more. No, seriously, it's just been a wonderful trip and a good inspiration for me at a time in my life when I needed a challenge to kind of get me back on track to safeguard my health. lifelong memory for me, as embedded in my brain, is that summer of 1995 when we raced.
Yeah, I still have the jersey, Team Tono Maida.
Yeah.
An important part of the Discover Your Path tour wasn't only talking to kids in group homes, but to also get educated and help shine a light on people who go to bat for these kids every day. Today we get to talk to Dan Schufelt of Arizona Helping Hands and find out what Arizona Helping Hands is all about.
We are a really special place. So we have stepped up to fill a void in service to children throughout the state of Arizona who are in foster care. We provide beds, cribs, clothing, diapers, personal care packages, back-to-school items, just about everything you can think of to help a child who has been abused and neglected, whose life has been turned upside down, who's lost. We're trying to help them find their way, find their path. And we do something really special here every day by helping families and children who weren't expecting to be in this scenario. A lot of times those are grandparents who got the call yesterday that their grandchildren are in need of love and safety. In 2019, provided 3,560 children with a bed to sleep on. It's amazing numbers. Almost a third of those children were infants. And most of those infants are born with substance challenges in their system. They're coming out of the neonatal intensive care unit loaded up with poisons. As you're holding those babies, you can feel them tremor from all the crap that's in their system that they're trying to fight off. And to think about that child not having a crib to sleep in tonight just is wrong. There are 14,000 children at this moment in time, if we stop the clock, in Arizona's foster care system. Over the last year, there's been almost twice that number who have entered and exited the system. So there's a lot of kids who need our help.
With the amount of work that Arizona Helping Hands does for kids in care, they rely heavily on volunteers. In 2019, they clocked 13,000 hours from their volunteers and needed 1,400 people to do so. We had a chance to meet a couple of these happy helpers.
I'm the warehouse manager at Arizona Helping Hands. Kind of control the inventory and help load beds and cribs into customers' cars. Well, you're looking at cribs, mattresses, rails, bedding, toys, cosmetics, and it's all donated. Well, I grew up in Detroit, and my grandparents had always helped one another. So I find helping kids in foster care, making sure that they got a place to sleep, where they got comfort, where they're getting a good meal, where they're being trained to ride a bike. They need that hug and loving care that a family can give to them. We got some kids out there that really need some love. And that's my goal, and I think it's a lot of my workers here, it's all about the kids. We want to take care of them.
I am a birthday bag person. I come in once a week, and we get the blessing of putting together birthday bags. We are so blessed. We have a warehouse back there that is filled with things from newborns to teens, and we get to go do what everybody loves to do, shop. It is something we take seriously. I mean, we have a lot of laughter back there, but everybody will often go, what do you think? Do you think a 9-year-old boy would like this? Or I think this would be perfect for a 3-year-old girl. As I said, I was a teacher for a long time, and I loved all my kids. I love my gifted kids. But my heart always went out to my kids that struggled. Such a big problem that seems overwhelming is something that you can put your little piece and make that little tiny time in that child's life that much happier.
If you want a big hug, stop by.
One of the specialties of Arizona Helping Hands is their birthday program.
All those essential needs, those are things we have to do for these children. The birthday program is what we want to do. We want to let these kids know that despite whatever circumstances they've experienced, they're loved and cared for.
And they should be celebrated.
Ignoring their birthday is just a crime, in my opinion. So our birthday program raises those kids up. It says, your birthday is a day we want to recognize. A young lady who's now working for a hospital, got her life together in her early 20s, but she came into Arizona Helping Hands and learned our story. And as we were walking around the facility, when we got to our birthday program, Laura started breaking down. She said, I wasn't sure I was prepared to tell my story yet, but I'm going to share it with you. She said, I was born in the United States to a Mexican national. My biological mother, shortly after I was born, took me across the border into Mexico, dropped me off at the orphanage, and walked away. Laura told me she spent 13 years at that orphanage in Mexico. When she turned 13, through a variety of circumstances, the nun in charge of the orphanage came to Laura and said, you 13-year-old girl have rights that the other girls here at the orphanage don't have. You could continue here at the orphanage, or we could place you with a foster home in the United States. She bounced around between a couple group homes and a couple foster homes until she turned 18 and connected with a mentor and kind of got her path set for her going forward. But she said, Dan, you have no idea how important this birthday program is. She said, when I turned 16, my caseworker and my social worker kicked in a few bucks and bought me a birthday cake. She said, that's the first time somebody said happy birthday to me on my birthday.
Another amazing moment at Arizona Helping Hands was the unexpected and emotional run-in with a new foster mom named Larissa, who was getting some supplies for her 2 new foster children.
I'm just gonna cry on camera. That means a lot because I worry about my babies, you know, I worry about the children that I have in my care, and I hope that I'm doing enough, and it's just like a lot for me, and to know if they're gonna be okay in the future, and you're looking out for other people now, and that just means a lot to you.
That's what we're supposed to do, and it's people like you that got me to where I am, so, thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yesterday was a really hard day, so this means a lot to me today.
It's overwhelming, yeah.
How long have you fostered?
So these ones are my first placements. I just got them in October, so the baby just turned 4 months today, actually, yeah.
Wow.
So I have 2 siblings. I have a little boy who's 4 months now, and then his sister is almost 16 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Busy household, huh?
Busy household. So I have 3 bio children of my own, and then the 2. So now we're a family of 7.
Yeah. So why do you foster?
We were talking to one of our friends who were fostering, and they just said Arizona has such a need for foster parents, good foster parents, and they just said there's so many children in the system, and there's just not enough for them. And we had this moment where we looked at each other and we were like, we could do that. Like, we have a safe and loving home for our children. Like, we are at an emotional, spiritual, financial place where we could provide even something. Like, it's just such a small thing. Like,
it's a big thing.
It's big, yeah.
It's a huge thing you can do.
I'm
It's
learning that
impacting
now.
lives.
Yeah. Like, I understand that it's big, and I receive that.
This is the biggest thing you could do.
I also understand that it's just the little things every day, like getting her up every day, or when she cries, picking her up, or like just the little things that make a big difference. And
it's the comfort you're giving to a kid that ordinarily might not have that, and you you see how that builds over time and changes their life forever. It's major. A lot of the good things that people do, people never get to see the result of that.
That's
you
how
do
I feel
it
right
because
now.
you feel you have to do it, and
Yeah.
you just know and you hope that yes, it will work.
Will the truck full of supplies help?
Well, and then I came here to get cribs, and then she took me around and got me outfits of clothes, and now I have 2 new hygiene kits. Like, I have all this new stuff that I didn't even know was available, so thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're why we're here.
Yeah.
You're our why.
Can
we do like a group hug?
Noah,
Thank you.
thank you for what you're doing.
No, thank you. Thank you. These kids are gonna be much better for it.
A dear family that we work with regularly, we just saw again this week. This family has fostered 40 children. They came in this week because despite the fact that they closed their license, they received a call from the state agency saying, we have more children who need to be helped. Would you reopen your license, add to your family home, and support these kids? And Victoria and Eric said, bring it on. Victoria and Eric have adopted 12 children over their career of fostering and have hearts that are bigger than I can possibly imagine for these kids. And they are literally saving children's lives. They've taken in some horrific situations, and they've raised those children up and given them hope and safety and love.
The trip to Arizona Helping Hands was incredibly educational for me. To see the physical scale of what's being done for kids in care and know that it's still not enough was bittersweet. Arizona Helping Hands is doing some really incredible things out there, and I'm honored that I was able to get a little time with them on this trip.
Arizona Helping Hands is here to bring hope to kids in foster care, and we're doing and will continue to do everything possible to make that happen.
I lived with my grandparents multiple times, and this made me think of hearing how hard it is for some foster families and for kids to adjust into these families, and knowing firsthand of what it was for me when I was a kid to try and adjust. About 10 years ago, my grandfather was sick, and I've always kind of felt that they looked after me later in my life, in my teens, and that's when my life started to become a lot more stable. But I spoke to my grandfather, and he was really ill. He said, "I want to meet the woman that you're going to marry," basically before he passes away. And I thought, well, that's really something. So we took a flight out to Wisconsin right away. We had only been dating a few months. And when she walked into the room, the first thing he said to her is like, "I love you already." But the reason I tell you this story is that the last thing he said to me before he passed away, well, I only have one regret. And he said that I ever sent you back. And what he meant was when I was 10, he sent me back to live with my mom. And when he said that really affected me, because I didn't know it was something that bothered him. And then when you find out it's his only regret in life, it's pretty heavy. So when I was 10, it was my first attempt at living with my grandparents, and things had gone really south in my home life. Stories of neglect that I had mentioned, like being left alone, and at 10, you just find a way to take care of yourself. You don't worry about it. And just one day, I woke up and I was very tired of being left alone, and I stood up for myself. I got my ass whooped quite a bit, and I was told that I wish you were dead. I wish I never had you. You were a mistake. Led me to go live with my grandparents for the first time. So now here I am, not understanding what care is. Now come in my grandparents, and I'm 10, they're in their 40s, and I'm a piece of I am angry and I'm mad and I don't want to be there. I don't know why I'm there. I don't know why someone just told me they wished I was dead. And I acted accordingly. So I told my grandparents themselves, I think more than once. I think I called my grandmother a bitch, and that was one of the last lines. It's like, my grandfather's a nope. He didn't want to take me back to my mom's, and I didn't want to go there either. And so I started to be shopped around. Went to some of my mother's exes that I actually got along with, and to no avail. Nobody would take me in. So here I was thinking, I'm 10 years old and I am just the throwaway kid. And that's what makes me identify with a lot of the kids out there, because they have a lot of similar feelings when you meet a kid that's been in homes, and many homes, since they were 7 or 8 or as long as they can remember. Those things are really hard. And this is just a testament to my grandparents, who came around and showed me unconditional love for many, many years, and helped me get my life on track and straight. They too, at one point in their life, just couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle the drama that comes from a kid who's been left alone and neglected. Just want to say that it's like testament to these people who foster children, that don't give up on the children. They're gonna do it. They're gonna become better. They're gonna be better listeners. We just have to find a way to not give up on them. And
and let that surface. So, you know, when kids are having negativity compounded on them daily, they need to have the positivity fighting back at the same level and the same intensity. So you are good enough. You will be good enough. You're strong enough. And we love you. So hit it home.
It seemed to be that week 3 was plagued with flat tires.
The original puncture, and then it looked like it hit in 2 other spots yesterday.
Oh, the tube's gonna make it. The tube is definitely gonna make it. Why? Because she has to.
As we counted the flat tires, I also started to notice some very dramatic changes to the tan lines on my face and body. No matter what I did, they kind of just became a beast of their own.
Well, I have a tire that's blowing out here. You see that? Awesome. The tube is coming through the beading. We're just lucky it didn't happen, you know, when I was doing 50 miles an hour down the hill.
Week 3 of the trip also meant that we would be losing one of our first team members who had to head back home. After Graham had to leave the trip, Trey and I felt that we had simply entered what we called the Twilight Zone in a little town called Van Horn, Texas. There was an ominous fog bank that rolled in, accompanied with really cold temperatures and high winds, had us stuck in this town for 3 days.
So here we are. We are making our way to Kent, Texas, and it is super foggy out. Very cold. It's 30 degrees right now in the mist. Won't be surprised if it snows. And I'm playing defense here behind Noah. Hopefully give him a little bit of break from the trucks coming by here on I-10. Fun days.
So I figured this day was inevitable. I've been putting some extra miles on the bike every day just in case something like this happened. And I've been riding through the dense fog, and it's about 32 degrees, 33 degrees. You can hear the semis, but I don't think you can see them. And now we're about to go on a road that doesn't have any shoulder. So it just seems that the safest option is to call it a day. We're still on schedule, but this day's for my wife and children. So getting home safe, guys.
3 days stuck in the high winds and cold temperatures really took a toll. I was kept up all night, not being able to move my left knee. I couldn't bend it, couldn't move, and I was stuck with a lot of worry in my head that this could be the end of the trip. So I hobbled to the car the next morning, and I thought, well, if I can at least get on my bike and start moving, the knee might loosen up a little bit, and I'll be back in business. So I did that, got on the bike and started pedaling. A lot like the fog bank that moved in, the cold temperatures and the storm, it all kind of vanished. The pain in my knee slowly went away, and it turned out to be a really incredible day. And we started to feel that we were on the upswing. We started picking up a lot more momentum. the sun came out again.
My very first century, my very first 100+ mile ride. 101.5 miles today.
Word.
That was wicked. We got to go to UMOM, which is a transitional living facility here in Phoenix, Arizona. We had a nice chat about a lot of things, and I was really impressed with this group of kids in particular because of what some of them had mentioned their goals were.
I am a junior at Arizona School for the Arts, so I do play piano. So I want to graduate school, and then after school, I want to either go to Georgetown University or George Washington University, do 4 years double majoring in political science and international relations.
Program, I can't tell you how long it's been here, but when somebody completes the program successfully, they paint a brick when they leave. The earliest that they come in is 16, and then they can stay up until they're 21.
Okay.
But our runaway homeless youth program, they come in at 16 or 17, and they can stay for 18 months.
Okay,
so,
that's great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so we do case planning.
Okay.
So our major things are education, employment. We do life skills groups to teach them how to manage bank accounts, how to mail a letter, how to clean a unit. We do have some youth that have some challenges with hygiene, and it's just because through their life growing up, they may have never learned that.
It hasn't been a norm.
Yep, so we work with them on those. They're all individualized.
One kid in particular, when I asked what their goals were and we went around the room, he said, my goal is to find a way to deal with my trauma. He continued to tell me about some of his trauma and what he wanted to get over. And it really just, it struck me as an adult thing. And for me, I don't think I dealt with trauma until much later in my life, until sobriety kind of set in. And I started to look at things a little differently with a sober state of mind. So for a 16-year-old kid to know that that was his goal was really, it took me back. It made me think these kids are well on their way to a good place.
There are 2 big points I want to change here in the state and even across the nation. The biggest point I think I want to make is jobs. I think jobs are important. My family, we weren't able to succeed as much because of the job limitations that they have.
I mean, this was just an incredible group of kids.
Some people don't get to dream about college, and I want them to have not only the dream but the ability to go to college.
The next stop on our journey was a little place called Angel Reach in Conroe, Texas.
I started out as a volunteer about 8 years ago. What I did was went up to Angel Reach. It was really just getting started, the transitional living program. There was nobody paid on staff. It was truly a grassroots organization with one house, and we were just trying to work with these kids who had aged out and they needed, number one, a place to live, and they may not have known it at the time, but they also needed to get a job. So we knew that, and we decided to help them with that. So I would go up and help them, drive. Basically, I was a driver. I would help them get to their job interview. And then we started a program called Foster Success, which was a grant that was offered to us to start a more structured program for the employment and the education piece. And that's kind of when we started to take off. That's where we came in. And it was really the founder of Angel Reach was she fostered, she adopted, and she had kids of her own. So she had a house full all the time. And really it was formed out of the need that she had and probably the camaraderie that she needed as well, because it can be tough raising all those kids, Yeah. I feel very, very fortunate, and I really do love it. So.
When we arrived, Jean gave us a tour of the Angel Reach Resource Center for Homeless and Runaway Youth.
See
Find out
kind of
how
where
they
you're
can
at.
start
and-
taking care of themselves, right?
Yes, and how can we help you? We encourage them to pick something small to work on so they can feel a success early on. And they'll work really closely with the youth coach. They'll help them in whatever way they need. So we kind of pull them in that way. They can get fed, get their basic needs met, and depending on whether or not they need housing.
build the growth and build the independence. Yeah,
That's right,
it's
and build the
incredibly-
trust, because
yeah.
that's a lot of it too.
When we were finished with the tour, it was time to head over to the Sandjack House for some really incredible Texas barbecue and a little sit down with the current residents of the boys' and girls' house.
I've been Angel Reach on and off for about 3 years, and how I got here was actually I was dating someone who's a truck driver, and I was always on the truck with him, but he lost his job, and we kind of just needed a solid place, so we were staying at Salvation Army. I met a guy who was actually Salvation Army, and he's the one who actually introduced me to Angel Reach. One day he asked me if I wanted to go somewhere that could help get clothes, food, and all that kind of stuff. I was like, yeah, I'll take anything at this point because I have nowhere else to go.
And what brought me to Angel Reach is I was living with my mom, and things weren't going so well. So a CPS referred me over here to Angel Reach, and so that's how I heard of this place. It was like 6 hours away from home, so I was kind of like scared to move to a different environment.
I was in a foster home previous to a lot of stuff. A couple years ago, I was in a foster home, and the foster home I was at was like not working at all. And I got approached by a counselor that knew Angel Reach, and this lady, Janelle, came up to me.
I've been here for about 3 weeks, and my sister and my dad actually told me about the program. I was kind of struggling. I've been in and out of homes trying to find a place to live. Everybody's been saying I was too much trouble.
The more that I meet these kids and the more that I learn about these kids, it's amazing the resilience, the level of resilience that they have.
I want to go to college for communication because I was never in a home. I've always been in shelters and RTC, so I've really had a rough time growing up in foster care. And the last RTC I went to, a girl killed herself. So I kind of want to go to college and talk to other youth to let them know you're okay.
That they are kids that constantly want to help, and they really care about other people that have gone through situations like I have or they themselves have.
And I think being a youth coach or a counselor or something like that, I could really help them because I've been there.
Like nursing, I mean, they have big hearts, so it's like I have a big heart myself. I mean, I care about a lot of people too, so it's like if they could help me, I mean, I could help somebody else in need. You get me?
And I just keep walking away feeling like I'm the one that's been inspired by these kids that are clearly far beyond any place I was when I was that age, and it's special. Gene took us for a drive to show us all the different avenues that Angel Reach takes to help people.
Kids and families can come in and get like 5 pieces of clothing every month.
Okay.
So it'll supplement them all year long.
Bike helmets.
Bike helmets. There you go. Yes.
And I like the aisles being labeled too. So you have career woman aisle here. This is
Yep.
setting them up for success.
Maybe a kinship family will get a call and say, hey, we got to take, your granddaughter from their home. Are you able to do it? And, they're pretty panicked.
Yeah,
a lot of
they're
times.
completely unprepared with supplies like this. And what do you do? Like you have to, they feel the need and the responsibility to step up and be there.
Mm-hmm.
And places like this make it easier on them.
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't want to just enable these kids to continue that just keeps them stuck.
Right.
I love the nonprofits that work really hard at empowering their kids to make it happen themselves, or the families, or whoever it is that they're working for.
Absolutely.
Because we're all capable, and there's no reason why we can't do it for ourselves, because that's what really will make our community stronger, It's, that's what we really try to do is Angel Reach just does all that we can to show them that they can do life differently and that they have the choice. At their age, it's their choice. It's their life.
Got back to the homeless situation, living in my car, going to work, going to school, coming back. And then after I graduated, then I was like, Angel Reach, because I wanted to settle down finally. I didn't want to be in here and go to high school, which what I should have done. But I had the wrong perspective of what I was coming into.
We had a chance to sit down with just a couple of staff members for a minute and talk about what it is they do and why they do it.
The reason I came to this job is because I feel like I have a heart to give. I mean, you can't work in this industry if you're wanting a good paycheck. You have to have a heart to give, right? And so what I learned is that there's an incredible amount of resilience with these young adults. They come with a great amount of pain, but they've got so much resilience. They really have a desire to rise above.
I went to grad school with our clinical director, and when she first started working here at Angel Reach, I kept hearing her talk about Angel Reach and working with age out of foster youth, and I kept thinking, oh my gosh, how heartbreaking, like how in the world does she do it? And then when I was invited in to come as an intern, as an LPC intern, I was thinking, wow, oh my gosh, this is a wonderful opportunity. I never thought that I would enjoy working with this population as much as I do. They've actually kind of instilled kind of passion into knowing that counseling is kind of where I want to be with my life. I'm a full-time teacher as well, so I love working with youth. I teach high school, and just coming here at the end of a long day of teaching just kind of rejuvenates me.
We all can say that it keeps you up at night. These young adults have stories that, make your skin crawl sometimes. It keeps you up at night. It makes you think about it. You think about other things that you should be doing that can make it better, and things that you did that maybe made it worse, and that can you do to improve that. And
kind of hard to tell people your situation sometimes, but let your teachers at least know, let your principal know, let someone in school know, because your attendance may be off. You may not be the most pleasant person to be around, attitude wise, because you're going through all that. And the big thing is just let people understand what's going on.
I missed so many opportunities wondering, am I going to eat tonight? Am I going to sleep tonight? Am I going to clean clothes in the morning? Don't try to survive. Try to live your life to the fullest, because you can't give back those hours, those minutes back, Nobody else will do it for you, and nobody else can do it for you.
the message is that you're stronger than you think you are. Because so many times they come in and they're just tired. They're tired. And so you're stronger than you think you are. You've got more to give than you believe that you can. And that we believe in you. And hopefully we impart that in them so that they believe in themselves. Because a lot of times, you know, we get kids in here and they've lost themselves somewhere along the way.
My hope for every kid that I've met at Angel Reach, or any kid that's out there that comes from a tough background, get to a place where you're at peace with it, right? Where so that you can move forward, is to just remember that there are people that you can trust, and there's people that care about you. Don't give up trying to find that person. Give somebody a chance to see who you really are, and trust them.
I had a lot of trouble when I was growing up, and when I started seeing the way that I was treated when I treated people with kindness, and when I cared about other people's feelings, I appreciated and enjoyed what I got back. And that just started to make a lot more sense over time, because I had no barometer of a situation. I had no example of a father and things like that in my life, so you just kind of go with what you see.
I mean, literally, you know, what we do at the Florida Network is prevention services. It's the title we work under for the state. But the thing to remember is, once you've successfully prevented a child from unwanted pregnancy, STDs, criminal behavior, poor hygiene, drug abuse. Let's say you succeeded all that. They haven't achieved anything. And so we need to stop looking at these children who need this kind of help as though if we can make them stop everything, they'll be fine, because they're not. It doesn't matter how angry they are, how deviant they are, how despondent they are. They all need the same developmental achievements and outcomes, that we all do. And so instead of looking at them as, you yell too much, I need you to be quiet, it needs to be you yell so well that when it's time to eat, I'm calling on you to come out here and yell over to that basketball court at the top of your lungs and say, everybody get over here, because you're the only kid in this place who can do that job.
I attribute a lot of me being able to turn it around was the gift of the bicycle. It gave me focus. Pre-bicycle, there was staying out all night, breaking into churches, breaking into buildings, running from cops. And then after the bicycle, I would literally just ride it all the time. And by the time the end of the day was done, I was too tired to, stay out all night. After biking and just keeping my head down and focusing on that, what happened was I entered a race. I entered a bike race, and I won that bike race. And so a kid that has no confidence and no direction and just doesn't feel great about themselves, when you have a group of people you don't know cheering for you and applauding you at a finish line in a race is really foreign, and it feels really good. And you're like, well, how do I get more of that in my life? And it was literally, okay, well, how do I become a better cyclist? How do I win more races? Well, you stay away from drugs, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you work out, you keep riding your bike, and all those things happen to be positive things. The people I hung out with were now cyclists. They weren't the people selling drugs. They weren't the kids partying at night. It was just more of a positive circle of friends and a group, and I was surrounded by it, so that really changed things for me. And it's, life didn't get easier magically after that, but it was something that could distract me from all the other things going on.
Being that it was a bicycle that changed my life, it was important to meet some nonprofits and charities that revolved around the love of cycling or giving the gift of a bike to a kid in foster care or a kid in need.
Noah is the type of person that benefits, and we're looking to benefit from what Roots for Relief offers, specifically our Wishing Wheels program. Our Wishing Wheels program is a yearly event that we raise funds from Thanksgiving to Christmas to build bikes together. Most importantly is involving the kids. And that's kind of where we bring our kids in, because we want their friends to be involved, and we want their friends to understand what it's like to give back and provide something for someone that might be a little less fortunate than them. Might have, mom and dad might be having a rough go at things this year. There might be an illness in the family. Whatever the reason might be, we want to be able to show that child that we appreciate them, we're here for them, and we want to give back to them.
Roots for Relief was a huge help to the Discover Your Path tour when it first started. The fact that I am a product of what they do with their Wishing Wheels program helped us connect really quickly.
So the idea for Wishing Wheels came about from a childhood experience that I had growing up. There were 3 to 4 families that my family was close to that every Christmas Eve we would get together and go to the local toy store. And we bought bikes, and through community centers and social service centers, we would be able to identify families that really could use help. And we would all get together in a box truck, and we would drive around surrounding towns, and we were able to give bikes to these families and just see the joy that it brought those kids on Christmas Eve.
Getting involved with the Wishing Wheels program and bringing my family along to build a bike was incredibly special.
My favorite part is getting together with friends and family to come here, and we get to build bikes all together. When we get to see the child's faces when we go to deliver them to them, That's great.
We wanted to build something bigger than that, something that involved more than just 3 or 4 families, something that involved the whole entire community. What Wishing Wheels meant, it meant bringing together people from all different types of backgrounds, people throughout the whole entire country, and allow us to give to hundreds of kids. Every year just keeps on getting bigger and better, and we're looking forward to this thing continuing to grow and being something that, as the kids grow, it allows them to make it bigger and add their own touch to it.
As I sat there in November and built bikes with my son Betis and my daughter Avery and my wife Juliana, John came around and handed us a name tag. And the name tag was to go on the bike that we were building. And my daughter held it, and it changed things. It changed the connection to what we were actually doing. And it added another special layer to what the Wishing Wheels program does.
The idea behind the name tags, is that, as a child, you might be used to mom and dad saying they've done something nice for somebody else. They might buy a gift card and give it to your church or give it to your local social services. A name tag makes it real for those kids. It makes them realize that they're building something for someone just like them. I think the one thing that I would want to instill in them is that they're going to have the same opportunity to give back to somebody else one day. One day, they are going to find their footing. They're going to find their way, and they are going to be able to return the favor. And that really is what it is to me, is just making it real, making it understanding that we know things are tough right now, but with this bike, we hope that we could change just one aspect of your life. And we hope that that change could, just keep things going for you.
Another special meeting was with Scott Benton, the founder of Bicycle House in Tallahassee, Florida.
Over the years, we've talked about helping kids, and I founded a nonprofit called Bicycle House. I've just guilted everybody into giving me bicycles, and I provide them to people who can't afford it. I think it's really important to be there for people. A lot of the organizations try to say, oh, well, we're going to try to teach you a skill. We treat it as if it's your neighbor and a tree fell on their car, and you go over and you give them the keys to your spare car and you say, dude. It's somebody who's having a tough time, like it's kids at CCYS come in and we loan them bikes for the afternoon, and they can go out and have a good time. And it's a consistent place that is there for them. We do house about 400 bike tourists a year. We're on a corridor across the United States called the Southern Tier, system by Adventure Cycling Association. I think providing a sense of belonging. I started this after having a debilitating head injury. It wasn't a bike crash or anything, and I was kind of rebuilding my life after spending a couple years in the hospital and stuff, and it kind of reduced me down from what is happiness, and I was like, okay, this is a different deal. I'm glad to be alive. I wake up every morning. It works, though. Glass of cold water, air conditioning, and a fixed bike. It's cool.
Getting my first professional basketball check was a great feeling, but it has nothing on when a kid calls back to the shelter and is like, I want to speak to Mr. Halen. I want to tell him how I'm doing. That's that's the best feeling in the world, knowing that you just completely flipped a kid's life. My name's Halen Washington. I'm a YCS, a youth care specialist here at the Curry House. Mainly my job is just to be there, be a positive role model for the kids, give them something to look up to, because a lot of them don't have that yet.
We're Lutheran Services of Florida, and most people in our community here know us as Curry House Youth Shelter, and we provide healing, help, and hope to those in need. And Curry House has been here in the community for right at 30 years now, and we serve adolescents in the shelter ages 10 to 17, and they come to us for all different purposes. It could be they're in foster care, they could be runaways, they could just be having a hard time at home. Every child's different that comes through our doors. And our goal of the agency is to be able to reunite those kids back with their family or in a placement that will encourage them to become successful as adults. Every time that they know that there are other people that have been through the same crisis and that they've came out on the other side, I think it's always promising for them to be able to talk about it, and hopefully not even talk about it later in life, but to be a role model now, whether it's in their classroom when they go to school or, you know, with their close friends, with even their parents, to be able to talk about some of the ways that they're feeling and what they're going through.
And so I found outlets as far as like basketball and things like that, and just preaching to them that there's ways to get away, whether it be through sports or writing in a journal or painting. It's just a way to reach them. I read a quote, and this quote, it sticks with me. Your legacy isn't about what you do. Your legacy is about how you affect others with what you do. And that's something that I looked at and always wanted to do. That's been my thing for the past year and a half. It's just how many kids can I affect and make smile and just make their day better.
Well, it was really exciting because it's not real often when you provide the type of services that we do that individuals even talk about it when they get to be adults. It's really something that's private, that they haven't shared with maybe even their spouses or close friends. It's always been secret. We have a few that come back here and there, but they come in individually just to our facility to see us, and it's always very rewarding. So for him to be going back to that shelter and then also going across the country to let individuals know that it's okay that you've been there before. You know, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's okay to talk about it. It lets other individuals, and especially the kids that we serve, to know that it's okay.
I knew from the beginning of this journey I wanted to have something to leave behind for the kids after we spoke. Bombas was quick to jump on board, offering hundreds and thousands of pairs of their socks to all of the group homes that I stopped along the way. Zane's Cycles here in Branford, Connecticut quickly came on to help too with so many things, like my bike repairs, getting jerseys printed, and also hundreds of t-shirts that I would be able to leave the kids along the way. Then chance had me meet a great friend named Rob Shear, the founder of Comfort Cases.
As a kid who grew up in the system, you know, at the age of 12, and then when I was a senior in high school, the fall of my senior year, I aged out. I literally became a homeless kid. Our whole entire mission is to give hope and dignity to our youth that are in foster care. See, the problem is most people don't realize that when children enter foster care, the majority of them are actually given a trash bag. And that is something that I experienced firsthand as a young boy who entered the foster care system. And then 11 years ago, when 4 children arrived in my home, all 4 of them carried a trash bag.
Rob and myself connected very quickly after meeting. Comfort Cases became such a strong part of the Discover Your Path tour.
I was so in awe with his story. See, I say this quite often. Each and every one of us has a story, and we have no idea how that story can impact someone else. And for Noah's story, it truly impacted me, and I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to make sure that he knew that he was not alone. See, the fact is that kids like Noah and I, who have been in the system, it's hard for us to realize that we matter. And I wanted Noah to know that he mattered to Comfort Cases. But I also wanted to make sure that when Noah was doing this tour across the country and stopping at group homes, that he reminded every single one of those kids that they matter. We decided that we were going to send Comfort Cases. Comfort Cases have brand new pajamas, a whole toiletry set in it, a book. We give them an activity, we give them a blanket, and we give them a stuffed animal, all in a backpack.
Comfort Cases became a very strong support system for myself, as well as all the kids I would meet on this journey.
You know, We have 438,000 children that are sitting in foster care. The projections show that we will have over 230,000 children enter foster care in 2020. And the fact to think that these kids are given a trash bag, I just can't see it happening. 100 cases went to 500 cases, went to 1,000 cases, and as of today, we have sent over 100,000 cases to kids all over our country.
For me, it just felt great to be a small part of the big things that Comfort Cases does for kids in foster care.
For Noah, I don't really think it was about how many miles he rode his bike, but I think for him, in my opinion, it was about how he impacted every single child he got to speak to.
Knowing that someone somewhere out there is thinking about you and cares about you sometimes changes the way you feel about yourself.
Visit comfortcases.org. Read about our story, that we all have an opportunity to be good humans.
Anchorage Children's Home is a local nonprofit here in Panama City, Florida, and we were founded 36 years ago by 4 concerned citizens in our community that wanted to make sure that homeless and runaway youth had a safe place to go. So from those modest beginnings, we have developed various programs serving the needs of abused, homeless, runaway, neglected, and abandoned youth in our 6-county area. We have served thousands of children over the years. Raising awareness about homeless and runaway youth is so important because what we do, a lot of folks don't realize all of the services that Anchorage provides. And what Noah is doing on his Discover Your Path journey is really paramount for us because it gets people thinking about that population. It's often the forgotten population. Teenagers are the ones that kind of tend to be the ones that nobody talks about. And they're at that breaking point and at that in the path of their life where they've got to make some serious decisions on which way they decide to go.
I've been doing this a long time. I was direct care staff and house caring people. And that's the hardest selling point for shelter workers is you're not going to probably see the impact you're making on this kid.
Right.
But the ones that are the most angriest and the most difficult, they're the ones that are going to run you down in Walmart and say, "Hey, Mr. Joel." And you may not remember the name. You know the face because you'll never forget the face. And they just tell you, I know I was a knucklehead, but I'm working now. And just being a normal citizen,
Which is a huge success.
Yeah. And that 99% of the time they'll say, "I really appreciate what you guys did for me back then." So it's just 10, 15 years later or something. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And that there is opportunities and there's hope for them to have a brighter future. So we're excited about his visit. We're excited about the comfort cases because those are important for our kids. When they are here, they usually come with the clothes on their back and their belongings are often in trash bags and they don't have a lot to tote from one place to the next. So this kind of gives them something that they can call their own. So we're really appreciative of that. The real angels of what we do are our frontline staff. I get to do the other side of Anchorage, which is the storytelling and the make sure that people support us and understand the services we provide. But the boots on the ground staff that we have here that are in the trenches with these kids every single day, and they love them and they do it because they love them and because they truly believe in them and they believe in this agency. We're in an area where we just came off a Category 5 hurricane 18 months ago, so our community is really struggling with housing and stability, and families are in crisis mode still from that event. So having more services in place, more mental health services. I know the state is really taking a hard look and doing a lot of things to make sure that kids are getting the mental health services that they need. But Anchorage is trying to keep up with that, and we want to make sure that kids know and families know that we're here and that we're here to help, and we want to make sure that they're successful and safe.
Planning the Discover Your Path tour took many months and lots of organizing, lots of phone calls, lots of mapping and planning. And there's only so much that you can do. You can think about weather, you can think about training, you can think about trying to stay healthy, you can think about finances. But the one thing we never considered or even thought to be a possibility was a global pandemic that started literally 3 days before we left.
And we were hearing about it in China, and I don't even think it was anywhere in Italy yet. And we were driving thinking, boy, if something crazy did happen, wouldn't a great place to be would be out on your bike in the middle of nowhere and feel like I'm eating my words, because that is not where I want to be right now. I want to be home with my family and make sure everybody's safe, but we got a job to finish here.
So as the pandemic grew, as we traveled, things got more and more scary. Every town we went to, more restaurants had closed. We would hear on the news every morning in the hotel about deaths and death tolls rising. Those numbers rose into the hundreds and then into the thousands.
Shut down Wall Street this morning. We had no idea that this sort of thing was gonna start to happen, but don't really know what else to do. Continue riding. We're almost there, and as soon as this is over, we can get back to our families.
Things with the corona pandemic eventually got so bad that my riding partner Trey had to call it quits and head home to his family. It was an incredibly difficult day.
I'm sad that I'm not finishing this out at the end, but this is also the right thing to do. So, screw you, pandemic. That's all I gotta say.
I can't make AutoZone jokes with Victor. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Victor, give me a hug.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Hey man, it's a pleasure, dude. I'm sad to see you go.
Trey had been with the Discover Your Path tour and the bike ride since the very beginning. He was the first person I spoke to when I traveled to Florida, even before I went to the shelter to talk to them about it. I stopped at his house, we caught up on old times, and I told him, hey, I have this idea, and he was instantly on board. So him leaving the tour hurt in more ways than I can describe. The tour wouldn't have been possible without him. He filled in all the blanks. He filled in every space in the schedule. He was driving. He was shooting interviews. He's the one that brought medicine and Band-Aids and extra tires that kept us going. And it wouldn't be possible without him. So seeing him go really, it threw me off and it made me incredibly sad.
Trey and I did every morning together. 51 days. Now he's off taking vitamins with somebody else.
I'm really sad. I'm getting really sad right now.
How many flats is this?
This would be 7, but we haven't had one since you got here, have we?
No.
Oh, see? Just thinking about how depressed I am right now. I wasn't depressed about the tire, I was just depressed in general. So I'm nearly done with today. It's been incredibly difficult, not because of anything physical related, but mental and emotionally today has really beaten me up. And just knowing that my family's not going to be able to be at the finish line, and now knowing that all the events need to be canceled for obvious reasons. And there's less than 300 miles left. And I have to play it by ear if I'll be able to actually visit these last 6 shelters that I'm supposed to visit. I mean, we got to keep the kids safe. So I'm just gonna try and carry on. But I just can't bring myself to not finish the destination. I mean, it's like what I was talking about earlier with, you know, you regret leaving or you regret not leaving, you know? And now I'm regretting every decision I've made. And I don't want to do that. You know, some people say it's like, oh, it's a sign, or it's all about how you look at it. And do I look at it as, this is the sign that I'm supposed to quit and go home? Or do I look at it as, this is just another test to see if I'll keep going?
I had a conversation with my wife about the pandemic and the situation that was happening, and we came to the conclusion that there was no option for me to opt out or to stop. And she reinforced that when she said, well, that's the point you're trying to make to these kids, that you can't control the situation. All you could do is control what you do within that situation. Once I had her support, I knew that I couldn't quit. I wasn't going to quit until I got there, and I wouldn't quit until somebody dragged me off the bike. But just like everything, you have to find a way to persevere. You have to find a way to carry on.
doesn't really matter what else is happening in the world. We knew this bike ride was going to go down today. And so pulling into CCYS, which is, my alma mater, it's where it all began for me. It's, it's more than just another shelter.
Here we go. So you guys doing good this morning? That's cool. I'm doing great. We just got to Quincy City Hall and we're waiting for some cyclists to show up. Whoa, baby butt.
2,800 miles later. Hey guys, I'm John.
Oh man, it was pretty.
How hard is it to not just go, I'm riding all the way?
Oh,
I got 300 miles left, I'm ready to go.
It was. There's like the schedule, and I was like, well, the sooner I get there, the sooner I can go home and see my family. To have a little group to do a little cruise with is...
I'm getting a little emotional, John, damn it.
When we started our journey to get to CCYS, Capital City Youth Services in Tallahassee, Florida, we had talked about a big group ride. Could be 30 cyclists riding with me into CCYS that day. And COVID-19 and new regulations said that we couldn't have more than 10 people together. So we got 8 cyclists and 2 drivers, and we were able to bike together from Quincy, Florida into the city of Tallahassee. Being able to see a group of cyclists and be surrounded by people was really rejuvenating. Being supported by people was something I needed at this point in the ride, with only 300 miles left. Pulled into CCYS, the reception was incredible. To see a lot of familiar faces that had been an integral part of helping the Discover Your Path tour take off months ago. Tallahassee is also the hub of the Florida network.
I've been having my back this whole time, and it's been a long journey, but with you guys and all the kids that I've met on this trip, it's just, it's been really special. And there's a lot of special kids out there that need the people like you in their lives and need to know that they're cared for and they matter. And this is really, really special. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've got, kids right here in Tallahassee who don't have any place to go, and a place that takes care of them. And I'd never heard of anything like it before. And by the time we finished talking, she'd offered me a job as a life skills educator, which is funny because I feel like at the time I didn't really have a lot of life skills. And I said, well, what's that job supposed to be? And she said, you take the kids out into the world, and if you can't do that, then you bring the world into them. And I said, that I understand. And so for $8 an hour and 30 hours a week, I just made that my life.
I got a quick question with the show of hands. Who's worked at CCYS currently or prior?
The Florida Network was a huge help with the Discover Your Path tour. Along the trip, their outpouring of support and care helped pull me through this. A huge part as well is the friends that I've made throughout this process, like John Robertson, Stacy Gramatsky, and many others will soon not be forgotten.
We're so proud of you. Thank you so much for everything that, we're thrilled to be a part of this. You're an inspiration.
So when we moved here to Florida,
it was already coming on the heels of a bad situation. I had lived with my grandparents, I had went and lived with other family members, and I still had a lot of anger problems, and couldn't find anybody that would take me in, so I was forced to go back and live with my mom. I went to this school up here, and I didn't have money for a lock on your locker, and the lockers were out in the open. And I think it was in the first week or 2 weeks, somebody opened up my locker, pulled all my books out of it, and went and took them into the boys' bathroom and then pissed all over them. So and then the school wanted to charge my mom, I think it was $45 or $50 or something like that. That didn't happen, so I was told to just go to school with, with no books. The school is sending bills to my mom. I don't have books to learn from. I'm sitting in class and can't do anything. So eventually, it's just like, what's the point of going to school? When you talk about the evolution of the situation and how I ended up in the shelter, I continued to not go to school. And one day, I went back home. My mom had broken up with her boyfriend. She started dating a new guy, and for some reason, I wasn't allowed to go in the house. I wasn't allowed to sleep in the house. So I was spending time at friend's house, and spent time at the neighbor's house. But I remember being told why, and it was something about this new boyfriend's parents owned the house, and it was a vacation rental, and his parents had heard that I was a bad kid around town. So I was asked to, stay at other places. I stayed at a cousin's house, I stayed at the neighbor's house, I stayed at friends' houses, and then eventually one night I stayed there, and I was given an inflatable raft, and there was like a back shed. I don't know if it was not a fenced in, but a screened in back porch or something like that. But it didn't make me feel very welcome. And then it led to a big fight. And I remember this big violent fight between my mom and I, where the cops got called, and so they took me to the shelter.
Well, I mean, for me, being a English and a literature guy, I really do take it back to the metaphor of Holden Caulfield in The Catcher in the Rye, and that was this was a book about a disenchanted, disenfranchised youth. Holden would have been a fantastic client, in the shelter during his wandering days in New York if he'd have gotten picked up by the local authorities. And what appeals to me about the shelter mission specifically is that Holden wanted his job to be standing at the edge of the cliff, and the children are running through the rye. It's literally where the title comes from, and it was going to be his job to just reach out and catch them. He never said he was going to, send them to college, cook them dinner, nothing. But he was going to be that one who kept them from the brink. And so, to me, the shelter mission, different than the child welfare mission, the rehabilitation mission, is that, that's who we are. We stand right there and we say, whoa, 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 that's not going to happen today. You're not going over that cliff today.
Safe places, group homes, homeless and runaway youth shelters, they all try to give kids a safe place to sleep. They help try and feed them, keep their stomachs full, fill their day with positive affirmations and life skills while they cope with their current situation, and hopefully find a way to help themselves.
And so to understand that every one of these kids has the same core set of strength and potential that you do or someone else does is vital, and that there's nothing to be afraid of. That just because they're all being driven around in a van that's conspicuously probably a social services van doesn't mean that they aren't wonderful, caring, loving children who can just break your heart and crack you up at any given moment. And if they fall short of that and they do something else, it's okay. Nobody comes out of the womb an at-risk youth. We act according to the way we are treated. And so my good friend Jesse Jordan, he taught me something really valuable. He said, I strive to be present in my absence. And so it doesn't matter. You don't have to be the most influential person in a child's life every single day, every single shift. But you got to make that effort, that in certain moments when they're trying to think of the right thing to do, or they're trying to pull up on a memory that's going to make them stronger, braver, more kind, you want them to think of you. And so whatever you're doing, whatever your personal style is as a youth care worker, when you clock out at the end of your shift, I want you to ask yourself, did you do everything you could to be present in that child's life in your absence? And if you think that every night, you're going to be okay.
CCYS was the last stop I was able to talk to kids at. So I did my best to enjoy the last 216 miles of the bike ride before visiting the shelter I was actually in at 11 years old in St. Pete, Florida. When I was 11 years old, I was in this exact shelter for runaway and homeless youth and kids going through some things with their families. When I was here, you were allowed to be here for about 2 weeks. I think they've since upped that to 30 days. I was here for 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, my mother was unresponsive, so they let me know that the next step for me was to go into foster care. And heard stories of foster care, and it was unfamiliar to me. And so to me it was like, even though my situation wasn't good with my mom, at least I knew that situation. It wasn't unfamiliar, I knew it wasn't great, but at least I figured I could handle it. So instead of going into foster care, I bolted. And so I was 11 years old with no shirt, no shoes, and I was running down this street about 10 o'clock at night. I think it was in maybe November, December of 1990. When I stopped by the Family Resources Safe Place to Be St. Pete shelter, I had a chance to meet an inspirational man, the residential supervisor, Joseph Mabry.
Well, I started doing this line of work as a direct care staff in 1976 in New York in a place called Children's Village in Dobbs Ferry, New York. It's a residential treatment center on the Hudson River. Back in the day, it was where orphans used to go. They would come up the river either by boat or on a train. Well, initially, I was one of those types of kids, okay, who didn't have any kind of direction or anything like that. And I actually had gotten into trouble myself. Johnny Appleseed Camp was a camp for young people who were positive thinkers. The camp director was into what was called transactional analysis. There I was able to see a lot of different things I was never exposed to.
Joe showed me around the many changes made to the shelter as I looked back on where my old room was and took it all in 29 years later. Joe also shared his experience with us and gave us some insight how we might best be able to help the kids right now.
Whatever it is that you really like to do or love to do, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And that's the key, but I find that to be the major challenge. Don't be afraid of making a mistake. Don't be afraid of asking that question. Take the step. That's the only way you're going to find out. Once again, the limitations in terms of what it is that they can do is really based on the horizons that they see. Right. And as time goes on, they can look outside of those horizons and come up with other things. But the more exposure that we give them while they're young, the more likely they'll want to reach out on their own. Later on, those seeds that are planted, they're going to grow, okay? And it's going to bring forth fruit. You may never see it, but it doesn't matter whether you see it or not. You know that you've done something for somebody.
Yeah, I didn't have any shoes or shirt, and I came running down this street here, And so that was pretty frightening as an 11-year-old. You know, they see me come in with no shirt and no shoes, which is not uncommon in Florida. The kid behind the counter was actually a friend of a friend from Madeira Beach, and I remember going in there, and he saw me and said, "Noah, what are you doing here?" And I thought, wow, you look familiar. And he had only started there maybe the day before, or it could have been that day. And I thought that was quite a ridiculous amount of luck. And so he took me, and he took me to his mom's house. And we got to his mom's house, and he set me up on the back porch. I stayed there for a couple days, and then he told his mother my story, and that what was going on, that I was a runaway. And so she kind of freaked out a little bit, and she's like, you need to get him out of the house. So now this kid asked me where I wanted to be dropped off. So I said, drop me off near where my old school was. I got dropped off about 2 or 3 miles up the street there, but I walked around all day in a t-shirt that was probably 10 times too big for me, so it was hanging way down to my knees. And then I came here because this is where I used to hang out with my friends a lot, under this bridge. And this used to be where we would skateboard, so it was kind of all like this rolling cement. And I ended up just sleeping right over here. Tried to tuck up there. I don't remember sleeping much. I was panhandling on the boardwalk again. I still hadn't seen any of my friends, and I had been gone, almost, 3 weeks now. 2 weeks in the home, and then almost a week running around crashing on people's porches and here. But I didn't want to, spend another night outside, I guess. So I thought, what else could I possibly do? And so I walked and walked and walked, and at the end of the day, I tried to put myself in a place where I thought, my mom might walk by and see me. I don't really know what was going through my head, but I felt like I wanted to see my mom, and I wanted to force her to see me and see that I was by myself, and hope that after a few days of not knowing where I was, that she might think differently about what she wanted to do with me, not leave me at the shelter. So yeah, I just sat there knowing that this was my mom's path to go to work. And I sat there, the sun went down, and I just waited and waited and waited. And eventually she walked by and saw me, and just kind of did a double take and glared at me. And ended up back in Adams, Wisconsin. I finished up 6th grade, and a couple years later I was given that bike. And another year or two after that, I moved in with my grandparents. And I guess, getting to meet these kids and see that they have these stories and tell them my story, I hope they'll realize that they'll get out of it, It's not going to be that tough forever. I was there, and I'm here to tell them that they can get through it. That it's just a matter of time, and they can try and stay positive, try and stay strong, and we just show them it's going to happen. They'll be all right. My plea to the people out in the world is to please give these kids a chance. Help by seeing them as kids who might be going through something and not just trouble. Help by donating time or money or resources to shelters and nonprofits in your area. or some of the amazing places like Comfort Cases, Arizona Helping Hands, and the Florida Network that represent and take care of these kids every day. It was more than an honor to receive this proclamation. Just hearing these words and reading these words in front of me was another layer of realization to all the work that we had done over the course of the last 9 weeks. All homeless young adults, regardless of race, gender identity, sexual preference, or religious belief, deserve to live in their community without fear and have access to a safe place with resources to meet their specific needs. Organizations such as Family Resources and Discover Your Path Tour are committed to serving our most vulnerable homeless population through responsive programs that provide emergency and basic needs, safety, support of trusted adults, and inspiration, helping them to move forward towards a safe, sustainable lifestyle. The community of St. Petersburg is encouraged to be a part of the solution, supporting individuals and organizations working to end youth homelessness. My gratitude for the people that work with at-risk youth every day is grown exponentially since the start of this trip. Not knowing what all went into the type of work that you guys do, and only knowing my story was something. But taking this trip and getting to meet all of you people and becoming friends with so many of you and knowing how hard your job is, I'll never be able to thank you enough for what was done for me in the past and what you do for kids every day. Let it be known that me seeing you guys in action has inspired me to continue helping these kids far beyond this bike ride. I feel that you've helped cement my feet into this institution of giving back and helping at-risk youth. It's incredibly important to take care of these kids. And to all the kids who grew up in the system, please know there are a lot of people out there that love and care for you. They want to see you succeed. I want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know that you're much stronger than you think you are. And I want you to know that it will get better.